Everyone that we are being taped by ActonTV. First thing I'd like to do is I'd like to start by saying thank you to Claire Janot. So Claire has been with us now for 3 years and really has all given her heart and soul and time and energy to educate us and to get our finances straightened out and to support us. So thank you. I know Marie wanted to say something.
Thank you, Amy. I'd like to take a minute to thank Claire Janot for all of her work on behalf of the staff, the students, and the community members of Acton and Boxborough. On behalf of the administration and the staff from the Finance and Human Resources departments, we would like to thank Claire for her dedication and her incredible work ethic. While Claire was the Finance Director for Boxborough Public Schools prior to AB, she was part of a small team that met every week or two to help work through all the details of merging 3 districts into one as we moved into a single region, pre-K to 12. This included merging budgets, staff, salaries, and many other details that would allow us to combine. This was no small task. Claire then became the Finance Director here at AB on the very first day of our new combined region. We began with a brand new chart of accounts and many, many details which you can't begin to imagine. In addition to all of this, Claire almost immediately began to look at our processes and helped us figure out ways to improve. Claire is the one who suggested the school committee set up a budget subcommittee, which has been incredibly helpful in all of our work. Claire has improved our timelines, completing our end-of-year reports, audits, and E&D certifications much earlier than in years past. Our budgets are in good shape and our reserves are healthy. Claire has left us in much better financial shape than when she arrived. Thank you, Claire, for all of your hard work.
Well, hello. I think it's really nice of you all to take a few minutes from your agenda tonight. Is this on? Okay, sorry. All right, well, anyway, thank you so much for taking a little bit of time from your agenda tonight so that we could just sort of say goodbye to each other. And thank you, Amy and Marie, for your extremely comprehensive and pretty accurate comments. 3 years has gone by very quickly. Some days were very long, but overall, when you look back, it's been a really fast trip in a lot of ways. But it's an opportunity that I'm always going to look back and think that I'm grateful for. When I look at a position, I feel like it's appealing based on the mission of the organization, based on the people you're going to be working with, and the kind of work you're going to be doing. And so this was really a perfect fit and challenge for me. I loved it. It's a big, busy district. It's really easy to support the mission, but what was awesome was that the 2 communities in this town are so supportive as well. There's a full load of devoted, skillful, and hardworking people here, so you never felt like you were rowing a boat by yourself. And the school committee shouldn't go without mention, because I've never seen a school committee get so involved in doing what the rules say your job is about a budget. You do a great job. So last but not least, the leadership group here is terrific to be part of. I think everybody brings something different to a role. Marie pretty much summed up what I feel like the most important accomplishments to have participated in while I was here. The staff development of the finance department is something I'm pretty proud of. I think that they all know their roles at this point in time, and they're working well together, so that'll be very supportive for Dave. the implementation of the budget subcommittee was major for how we all worked together in planning the budget and getting early input from school committee members on the directions we were going. To participate in the creation of 3 budget cycles that were fully supported by the town boards and by town meeting in both communities is something I'm very happy to have been able to work on with you all, and to bring all kinds of transparency to the process for all the townspeople. So I want to just give a special mention to Marie Altieri for her early assistance and mentoring, and to Tom Blondin, who served as the budget analyst when I started and is now the district accountant. These people helped my transition my first year more than they may realize, and made me able to contribute year 2 and 3 the way I did. I also want to give best wishes to Dave, the new finance director. I hope over the last few months my assistance to him has been helpful. He has a great background for this job, and I know you guys are all going to be in good hands with him. I've been in finance my whole career. Now it's time for some new beginnings. So I'm looking to replace they always say you should put something funny in, right? Take this the right way. I'm looking to replace finance with 5 F words. Fun, family, friends, fitness, and freedom. So with that, I wish you continued success with the amazing district you're leading, and I know you're going to move it forward successfully. Thank you.
Okay, so with the consent of the members here today, I would like to move item number 12 up next before we do the even the warrants, so that Michael Sorba, who is here, and Emily Fishkin, who is here, can talk about the trip or answer any questions about the trip. You want to go?
Please. Thank you, Amy, and good evening, everyone, and congratulations, Claire, and good luck. This is agenda item 12. In your packet is information, field trip information packet that provides information about this proposed out-of-state field trip. I've been through the packet. I've asked some questions about it. I certainly think it's a great opportunity for some of our students to participate in, and I am recommending that the school committee approve this. As Amy had indicated, Michael and Emily are here. In case you have any questions, they're available to answer them.
It looks like a terrific trip. I think opportunities for kids to see other cultures it's a tremendous opportunity, and I want to thank the teachers who take this on, because it's also a huge responsibility for them to take this on, and it's certainly extra above and beyond what we expect. So I want to thank them for doing that.
I just want to note that it looks really exciting, and it's I envy this trip. The kids will get a lot done, and it looks really robust and exciting.
I have one question. So, what age group are you taking? I didn't do a great job finding that. Where are you picking the students from? You can just shout it out. It's okay. You don't have to come up and do anything formal. But so this is just going to be open to any high school student that wants to apply? Ah. That's great. That's great. Thank you.
It's okay.
This trip looks incredible. I'd love to go myself. It makes me want to go back to high school just to go. How much are you expecting the students to raise when they do fundraising? Like, how much is coming out of pocket, and how much is coming out of attempts to fundraise for this?
Thank you for having us. Is this on? Yes. Okay, great. So the fundraising efforts really depend on, we do some group fundraising, but a lot of it ends up falling on the students' shoulders, but with support from World Challenge. In fact, our trip coordinator will come and chat with us once we have a group assembled, and she'll give us some suggestions for how to go about fundraising. And that's for both individual funds as well as some group funds. And the group funds would go towards any group expenses that are not covered by the cost of the trip. Like if during the rest and relaxation stage, if we want to actually do some sort of added adventure, then the group funds can go towards that cost. For example, when I traveled with this group of students to India in 2009, and the cost of the trip did not include a trip to the Taj Mahal, but we had funds that we had raised that we then put towards the train ticket to the Taj. So it'd be something like that. If there was something in the area that the students wanted to see that was not covered, then we could put group funds towards that. But the fundraising is very much something that World Challenge prides himself on, making sure that kids have some autonomy over the trip itself, that it's not just a check from a grandmother or from a parent. So it's important that they do take ownership over the raising of the funds.
So I had a friend just returned from Peru in June, and he loved it. And I guess all I can say is just cherish each day.
Thank you.
Can I get a motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll send you a postcard.
All right, we have some warrants. We have 18-006 PR dated 9/14/17 in the amount of $502,647.17. 18-006 September 21st, 2017 in the amount of $701,204.44. And then we have payroll P-1806 and P-1806V in the amount of $2,342,413.49 for a total of $3,546,265.10. We also have minutes to approve from our September 7th meeting. Are there any comments? All those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Okay.
Abstain. Just gonna abstain.
You're going to abstain?
Yep.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right, so this is the time in our meeting when we invite the public to come up and speak on items that are not on the agenda. So is there anyone that would like to come up and talk, say anything? Okay, I'm going to turn this over to Dave. I guess you're up.
Thank you. You have two communications from me in your materials. The first, wish Claire was here for this. She would take she'd take a curtain call for this one. I think would be in order. We got an email communication from the commissioner certifying from the commissioner of the DOR certifying E&D funds for the district as of July 1st, 2017, just over $4 million. That tracks almost exactly to the amount that I had presented to you on August 24th. As I say in the memo, the E&D fund has grown by about $1 million a year each of the last 3 years. It's still within the limit prescribed by the state. It would be really remarkable to match that same performance this coming year. So typical of a finance guy, I'm going to put the cloud up there as well. In the presentation I made to you last month, we talked about some of the things that are out there this year that are going to use the E&D amount. We put $450,000 into the budget this year versus $200,000 in the previous year, and we're recommending using $700,000, more or less, toward the elementary school feasibility study. I'll have a more detailed look at E&D projections when I start making quarterly financial reports. I gave you the copy of the email, and also for just illustrative purposes, what the DOR does to determine the E&D calculation, and there are very small numbers from which they adjusted the preliminary amount that Acton Boxborough submitted to the DOR. So again, I think it's testimony to how well the finance department ran and had run under Claire's leadership here. So answer any questions about that. I think it's pretty, you folks obviously have more experience with the E&D certification than I've had to this point, so. Nope. Okay. The other letter is going to require a vote. It's a perfunctory matter approving the impress balance of each student activity checking account at the Blanchard Elementary School, the junior high, and the senior high. All of those amounts are unchanged from the prior year. This is a matter that allows having student activity checking accounts allows the buildings the convenience of dispersing funds for student, and that's the key word, student activities. This is not district funds. The district is a fiduciary, and this vote simply ensures that the school committee is comfortable with the limitations that the buildings can hold and thus expend from those checking accounts. So again, this is the same amounts as were authorized last year. I will tell you, and I say in the memo, that the high school is requesting an increase to their amount. It doesn't become relevant, in my opinion, until later in the year when some of their activities get into high gear. I'll have a recommendation for you at an upcoming meeting. But for now, what's required is a vote to authorize these balances for the student activity checking accounts.
Any comments or questions? Yep, Diane.
So you noted in your letter that that the independent auditor, I think it was Powers and Sullivan, they had made some recommendations that you were going to get back to us on, some inconsistencies between our policy and practices and such. So can you, I fully prepared to vote on this now, but can you comment on that and when we can possibly hear from you about these recommendations that they made?
Yeah, the recommendations are not particularly significant. They're really procedural matters and not anything that would cause any concern, in my opinion, for moving ahead with this.
That's something that maybe is that on?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry, stupid. I'm not really sure, but why don't the other elementary schools have them? Like Blanchard does, but why don't the other elementary schools have them?
Well, I guess I don't consider it a stupid question, but I don't know that I have an answer. I mean, I'm coming in, and the Acton elementary schools don't partake of this ability, and
I think it's sort of a tradition thing. So they weren't, partly because Blanchard was its own school district, I think it was normal for it to have its own student activities account. I think the things that it's used for at Blanchard, most of the elementary schools are using the PTOs for. So the field trip money might go in and out of a PTO checking account instead of the student activities account, and so on. It's an optional thing at the elementary level, whereas at junior high school it would be more normal. It sounds like Bridget has something to add.
I think at Blanchard, too, it had to do with the Cape Cod field trip, which they did specific fundraising for. The class does, so it's related to that. Well, they used to, so that's why the account was originally set up.
So Dave, you mentioned that the high school may want to bump that up later in the year, and they'll have some report as to why they want to do that?
Yes.
Or do we have a sense of why they want to do that now? Or?
The only reason that you would say we need more is they come to a point in time where they need to write a check for, the prototypical one is the prom, all right? So big high school, they have a big prom bill, and they need to write the day of event check for the prom. I'd rather not get into the nuances of it. I have my own opinion about use of student activity funds and the level of balances and how high they should be. So suffice to say, when it gets presented, I'll make those known and perhaps influence the decision, and perhaps talk to them in advance and maybe influence their desire to bring it forward in the first place. And so I'll just say, coming attractions, this is to allow them to liquidate, to pay for bills without the wear and tear and time of going through the warrant process. With that said, the warrant process still works for student activity funds. It's a case of convenience versus formality. There are adequate controls. We're not worried about them, about funds being misapplied. But the question is, how much money sitting in this account in the custody of a principal is appropriate? And is it 35,000 has been the number? That's what I'm recommending you reauthorize tonight at this point.
Okay, so I'm gonna ask for a motion, and the motion is to set the impressed balance of the student activity checking accounts for the 2017-18 school year as follows: the senior high school, $35,000, the junior high school, $25,000, and Blanchard Elementary at $5,000.
So moved.
Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Marie, can we get the PowerPoint going? There we go. Just took me 4 buttons to try. I am. Thank you. So in this agenda item, what I'd like to do is walk you through the proposed goals for the 2017-2018 school year. This is a first reading. You'll have an opportunity to ask some questions, but we will come back at the October 3rd meeting for asking you to approve, and we're not asking you to do that tonight. In your packet, you received a one-page summary of the proposed work to be undertaken under each of the 3 goals that are outlined in our strategic plan. And you also received a copy of the strategic plan that provides notes both on last year's progress and the proposed work for this year. I do hope you've had the opportunity to go through that information, and what I'd like to do tonight is go through a brief PowerPoint, walk you through that to provide some more specific information about these goals. I'd suggest, a suggestion I have is that let's go through the presentation and then open it up for questions, and we can always go back to a particular slide. And as we walk through this, I invite Marie and Deb and Dawn to jump in, either to further explain or to provide or to correct me, perhaps, on something I might say. When we get to goal number 2, in particular the equity audit and some work, further work under MTSS, I am going to ask Don. Don will jump in and provide a brief description about what the equity audit is about. So in this PowerPoint, of which you have a copy in front of you of the slides, you'll note that in each of the under each of the three goals, what we've done is we've divided the work, the activities that will take place, into two categories. The first category is identified as ongoing and planning. Ongoing and planning means that the work is either continuing from previous years and will be ongoing through this year, and planning means that, again, it's either continue planning or planning for implementation. Under goal number 1, in developing strategies that positively impact learning, wellness, and engagement, there are three pieces to that, and under the implementation and monitoring of the new homework policy, the committee did vote. A lot of work was done last year to revise the homework policy district-wide. The school committee voted the new policy in July, and this year the focus will be to document and align practices by school. So as this policy is being implemented, our principals will be working with our staff to further document how the staff is implementing the policies by school, and working to align practices both across grade levels, within schools, etc. We are holding a district-wide homework information night that will occur on October 24th. All of our principals will be there, and they will speak to what's happening in their schools around this new policy. And effectively, this year, in year 1 of implementation, we will be following the implementation of this new policy as we go through the year. Principals will be taking feedback from parents, I'm sure, from staff, I'm sure, and as we move through the school year, we will note these and be prepared to come back to the school committee, if necessary, for any potential adjustments or tweaks that we feel would make the policy more effective. So this is an implementation year, and we'll be working hard on that. Another aspect of this goal is to continue the Family Learning Services program that began last year. And the 2017-18 focus, school year focus, will be on building resilience. Our first speaker in that series, Raina Chudnovsky, actually was here last week. And our next speaker, Rob Evans, who will speak to raising resilient children in challenging times, will be here next month. And Rob has been in the district before. He's a nationally recognized speaker and expert in this field. And we hope that many, many parents will be available to attend that presentation. I think you'll find it very interesting. And then further, we will continue planning efforts that have previously begun related to possible changes in the junior high and the high school bell schedules. I know last year there was thought that any changes, potential changes in both the junior high and high school bell schedules could be implemented in September of 2018. Upon further work this spring and over the summer, I think both principals have determined that their staffs just need more time to look at this, and so we don't believe, certainly, that we'll be looking to implement any potential changes in bell schedules, and that's different than start times, so they're two different things. For 2018, however, the high school is thinking about the possibility of doing a potential pilot over a 2-week period with a different bell schedule in the spring of 2018. But both schools still have a lot of work to do in that regard. And then under in the category action to be taken, school start times. And I'd like to just, before I go any further with that, just like to remind the committee that, well, I shouldn't be reminding you. I think you're well aware that this is an item, an idea, a concept that's been talked about and looked at for a number of years in the district. Over the last 2 years, there has been considerable work done on this issue. 2 years ago, the committee was presented with a report on the research related to this. I've gone through all the research. I've been looking at it for a number of years myself. The research is really compelling, and I've found that in talking with my colleagues, both in this area and across the state, the issue of changing high school start time is something that every school district, if they haven't started working on it, they've certainly thought about it. And so at AB, we've done a lot of work. The 2017-18 school year will be a year where a final decision on school start times will be made, and we will move forward with making plans to implement that. The recommendation that came before the Committee on School Start Times back in June was to move forward exploring the logistical and financial possibility of implementing a change in start times as outlined in option 4 for September 2018. And option 4 basically recommended that the high school and the middle school start time be moved later to 8 a.m. That report and that recommendation generated a lot of good questions and good comments by committee members at that meeting, and so I know that recommendation was not acted on. I don't expect to get into detailed discussions tonight about school start times, but we will come back next meeting on October 3rd to provide you with a comprehensive update on what has happened between June and October 3rd. It really will be an opportunity to kind of refocus on the work and an opportunity to start the process for the school committee to take some kind of action. Not sure what that will be, but we'll be putting information together for you, and that will be a major focus of the October 3rd meeting. Along those lines, though, assuming that we are moving forward, part of the work that will have to be done this year is to fine-tune the logistical and technical impacts that already have been identified. Busing is one of those. Part of the recommendation or a piece of the recommendation and consideration was to move to 2-tier busing from 3-tier busing, and there's been work done on looking at what that will cost. So we'll talk more about that at the committee level as we work through the very beginning of this year. And assuming that we are going forward, we'll have to work to design an implementation plan, and again, assuming that recommendation and the action that you take is based on a school start time change to be effective in September of 2018. So we still have a lot of logistics to work through, but again, that will be part of the upcoming conversations. But in my opinion, the time has come, and I think many people agree that we need to make a decision around this issue. So we're we're comfortable with certainly going forward with that. In terms of the second goal, providing our students, a goal of our students will have equitable opportunities and tools to learn. These two items come under the ongoing and planning category. And Dawn, would you just take a couple minutes to take us through this?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So last year, as you recall, we had Dr. George Batch here at our May 22nd meeting, I believe, and he provided us with really a summary of where we were after we sort of did a self-assessment at the district level. One of his concerns, as we sort of talked about next steps, was that if we move forward too quickly, which is true of anything that's large and requires some pretty substantive changes in philosophies, beliefs, instructional approaches. If we move forward too quickly, we will be creating kind of a third system and not really a base system in order to support all students and where they are in terms of learning and growth. So one of the things that was clear in our data, as you recall, it is starting to really widen are the gaps in proficiency between some of our students who are students with disabilities and then students with who are English learners. So those are certainly concerning areas to us and areas that we really need to back up and take a step, kind of a step backwards. One of our big focus areas this year as a leadership team is around cultural proficiency and supporting students who are culturally and linguistically diverse, as well as families as our district continues to evolve in terms of its diversity. So that was a big piece that became clear to us in terms of a need, and as did that the fact that the equity audit, which has been in the long-range strategic plan now for almost a year, that work probably takes precedent in terms of the why behind some of the work. We always know we start with the why before we do large things, and I think those of us here certainly know the why, but perhaps harder to convince others. So wanted to take a step backwards. So in doing that, one of the goals that we've had on the table for a while is to conduct an equity audit. And that really looks at three sorts of things. It looks at access, just do students have equitable access to a variety of things in the district? So can everybody gain entry? It looks at processes and systems, so what exist in the district and are those equitable? So a little further than non-discrimination, really looking at whether there's a process in place to ensure that students are accessing things, systems, they're able to work through processes in ways that are sort of fair and just, not necessarily equal. And then finally, outcomes. Do all of our students, are they provided with opportunities to achieve the goals and objectives that we've set out for them? So an equity audit would typically look at three big areas. Teacher quality is one of them. That looks at degrees and experience. It looks at teacher mobility, retention, recruitment, teachers working outside their area of expertise, which does not happen here. Programmatic equity, which will look at everything from advanced placement honors, special education, English language education. Student discipline is usually considered under that category as well. And then finally, achievement equity, where are we in that regard? So that's sort of where we are with this particular piece, and still sort of learning a little bit about what we would like the equity audit to entail. And yeah, we're working with some outside people already to have some great conversations.
Thank you. Something that's missing, but was a focus of the Wellness Committee last year. The Wellness Committee last year spent time looking at survey tools to conduct a survey related to culture and climate in each of the schools. And as we looked at the piece about the equity audit, it's clear that culture and climate, collecting data on culture and climate is part of an important part of an equity audit. So we do not plan on doing individual school surveys around culture and climate. That data will be part of the equity audit. So that's one less piece that was being planned out during last year. that we will that we'll conduct this year. And then also under number 2, there was work done last year, and you also, this is another report that you had the opportunity to consider at the meeting last June, and there was work done looking at elementary school. It was called the Elementary School Funding Report. There was a major focus in this report related to the use of classroom assistants, how they were funded, what that funding looked like across the district. And from that report, there were 2 very specific recommendations that were brought forward. One was to standardize the assignment of regular education classroom assistants, which boiled down to the consideration that given current funding levels in the district, every grade 1 to 6 classroom in the district, a 12-hour-a-week classroom assistant could be funded with those resources. And then the second recommendation was to restructure community education programming. Basically, what the recommendation was about was a recommendation to have the community education department take over, actually bring all before and after school programming that's occurring in our schools under the auspices of the community education department. And you're familiar with the report, and before and after school programming is being provided in a few different ways at various schools throughout the district. So again, there was no action taken on those recommendations. There were actually 4 other additional recommendations that were provided in that report that were associated with these 2 recommendations. One, as an example, was to develop clear expectations of the role and purpose of classroom assistants. Also, during this presentation, as with the school start time presentation, as I reviewed the minutes, it appeared to me that there were a lot of good questions, a lot of good comments by committee members about these recommendations, and about certainly some practices and the need to look at policy around some of these practices. So our goal this year will really be to bring back to you again an update on where we stand with this issue. We've identified the October 19th meeting as a meeting where we will focus on this particular goal with the hope that we will ask the committee to take some action, some specific action based on these recommendations, either as they were presented in June or perhaps something maybe a little different. And again, making some assumptions right now, part of the work that we envision going forward in order to implement a possible school committee action for next September will be to develop the plans to centralize before and after school programming, if that is what happens, and then to finalize the process for reallocating the different funding sources. So that will be a focus for that particular goal. And then last, probably the most straightforward, goal 3, our students will have access to safe and effective learning environments. The district has done a lot of good work on these 2 initiatives. Of course, the feasibility study funding proposal, again, the building committee as reported at the we met after. We'll hear a report a little later on. But the building committee has developed a community outreach plan. The committee is working on fine-tuning and finalizing the aspects of that outreach plan. And that outreach plan is an effort to get information out to all of our parents, all of our community members in both towns about the preferred school building project that will require funding for a feasibility study at the town meetings on December 4th. And that will be, that one particular action item will be a major focus over the course of the next 2.5 months. And then the second piece there is a capital improvement plan. Again, there's been a lot of work on this. The committee has seen the proposed capital improvement plan. It totals, I believe, Marie, $14 million in that area. And part of the goal for this year is to develop details for scope package projects with funding timelines, and then design schedule and recommended funding sources for implementation of the capital improvement plan. And Marie, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the time frame for the capital improvement plan and doing this work would be in line with our budget development timeline. So that's the proposed scope of our work for this year, and our hope is that we will take on and make some final decisions about a couple of key issues, and we'll be continuing to work on other initiatives that in many ways will continue to support teaching and learning in our district. Questions?
Thoughts, questions? Yeah, Bridget.
So I'm really happy to hear what you reported on, Bill, because one of my questions and comments on the information in the packet was to hopefully get some more clarity on the timing of some of these things and how, if the school committee needs to take action, when we can expect to see items on the agenda. I think that's really important. I think the last couple of years we've gotten caught a little bit with some of these things going on in the background, and then by the time it gets to the school committee, it's May, June, the year's over, and we have to put things on hold because we don't want to implement new things at the end of a school year, and you get into that whole, issue. So I'm really happy to see some more specific timelines. I would encourage us, if we know now that we're hoping that on October 3rd we're going to be looking at a particular item, and then the 19th another item, put that on the agenda, at the end of our current agenda, so that people in the public have more notice that things might be coming up. I just think it would be really helpful to encourage better communication with the public. Just one thought. So anyway, thank you very much for that.
Thanks. I didn't want you forgetting me. So I have two questions for Dawn, if you don't mind. The first question is regarding the equity audit. The way you make it sound, it seems like a big deal. So, in here you say the district will work with outside support. So are there consulting firms in the educational space that do this on a consistent basis, and from a time and cost perspective, what did that potentially look like?
Great questions. So there are probably 4 folks in the field who've written all the books and done all the research sort of around this thing. We've actually had conversations with all of them, and we have proposals from all of them at this point in time in terms of scope and that sort of thing. They range from 37,000 to 57,000 sort of range. However, one of the gentlemen who we spoke with suggested that we contact our local being in Maryland, Equity Center, and there are about 6 national equity centers. Ours happens to be the Mid-Atlantic Equity Center, MAEC, and we had a conversation with them late last week, and they will do the bulk of the work for no cost, which is fantastic to hear. And if there are some pieces that we'd like kind of above and beyond the typical scope, then they'd be happy to have conversations with us. But they would also be able to provide professional learning for staff, for leaders, for community, those sorts of things, as well as do the typical survey work, the data work. One of the things we really had hoped to see was around some focus groups and some interviews as well. And that's when sometimes those costs can creep up a little bit. And then scope-wise, I think we were probably looking at narrowing it to maybe starting at the secondary level, where we start to see some of the systemic things sort of play out, and then looking at elementary in a little bit.
So what's a projected time frame for this?
That's a good question. Definitely digging into it this year. I would think that we would have something to the committee in May or June that would be some sort of whether it's a preliminary report, whether it's sort of next steps. But I think this is probably work we're talking about 2 to 3 years. All told.
Okay, but does that hold up the time frame when we want to implement goal number 2, or is this just because it's ongoing, it'll keep going?
So in the strategic plan document, you'll note that the kind of work that Don just described is identified for this year.
Okay.
And then it will be the full scope of the work and looking at the recommendations and what our response would be and plans response to those recommendations. It's noted that that would continue through the 18-19 school year.
I'm sorry, I've been waiting 4 years to ask those questions. No, so, I'm just kidding. So, and the last question for Dawn, so we talked about a gap that we see in in learning, in certain groups. So, is it your opinion that this, well, first of all, do we know if this gap is in other communities, similar communities ourselves, or is it, or do we have a problem here at AB? Or just AB, I should say.
I don't know as it's necessarily a problem in other communities. I would say it's a problem in any community when we have, historically underserved populations who aren't achieving where we would hope to see them achieving. And I think it all gets at some of the work around defining what one of the consultants that we talked to, when we define ourselves as a high-performing district or a high-achieving district, he said, for some. And that was just a really interesting statement to make in terms of, right, for many, but not necessarily for all, right? And so that's always our goal.
Okay, but I just want to be clear. It's not, yes, we have to deal with the problem here, but it's not like every district in the Commonwealth is doing well with these statistics, and then AB's the only one not doing well.
No, I think that it's a pretty typical profile. Mm-hmm.
I very much concur with what Don just said. This is not an issue unique to AB.
Can you define the term cultural proficiency? Are we hoping, there's a bullet here that says, under goal number 2, continue planning, capacity building, and professional learning around cultural proficiency. Only just to expand, is it teachers that you hope will gain cultural proficiency around their students, the students gaining cultural proficiency around, the greater culture they're in? I'm just curious.
So right now we're focusing on our leadership team, and so when we talk about becoming more culturally proficient, what we're talking about is the first step is really identifying your own isms, really being able to unpack some of your own biases so you can engage in effective conversations about historical structures, present structures that might prevent the equitable kinds of processes and access that Dawn had mentioned earlier. So it's really beginning to understand sort of your own thinking and where you come from so that you can engage with others around that. So we want to start with the leadership team so we can have those conversations with teachers. We're helping teachers also understand what it means to be culturally proficient. And then for students, also to gain perspective of each other and also from and to gain some empathy about different perspectives. And so it's really about building a culture. So I want to be really careful here. We're talking about cultural proficiency, which is different than when we talk about a school's culture, right? A culture being the way we do things in a building, the way we go about our business. What we're talking about cultural proficiency is really understanding those isms, so racism, sexism, those kinds of things.
And to piggyback on that, to Does that include understanding students with disabilities?
Yep, all those different perspectives, yes.
So you're hoping ultimately students will do a lot of this work among themselves?
Well, we're hoping that the cultures within the schools, so a lot of, it starts in elementary school, the responsive classroom, and a lot of the kind of social emotional work that we're doing there, that schools will create cultures where that kind of behavior, that kind of understanding is expected. But we need to have a better understanding ourselves as adults and to be able to engage in that work together first.
I have a question for Deb. So my understanding of the Every Student Succeeds Act is that states are going to be responsible for developing indicators for accountability, some of the indicators for accountability. And, you know, when you're talking about equity audits and such, I'm wondering, do we have input on the state level? Because this seems like it's fertile ground for some kind of accountability measure going forward in the future. Can I get your thoughts on that?
So actually, it's interesting, I was just reading an Ed Week article about Every Student Succeeds Act Explained, because there's a lot of information there, a lot of details. One of the pieces the state can, so when the state opens us up for feedback from districts, we can have what's called a non-academic indicator. They suggest that one of those indicators can be student engagement, educator engagement, access to or completion of advanced coursework, post-secondary readiness, school climate safety, or whatever else the state thinks makes sense. So each state can include one other indicator along with the other three academic indicators. So there is room for some other addition.
Yes, and I just read that Massachusetts was, so I think 17 states, on the federal level, they've accepted the programs that the states have developed and have approved them, but Massachusetts is not among them, so it seems like we're still kind of figuring it out.
Diane, part of that is that DESE right now is, there's been a change in the leadership because of the death of the commissioner, and I do know that a number of the state initiatives have been just at a standstill for a little bit while they go through that transition. But I would expect, and I know that there has been work that has been done on that particular aspect of the state's responsibility under ESSA, and I would imagine as we go through this school year, we will hear more from DESE on what they're thinking.
I'll just say that, you know, it would be a relief to have non-testing based indicators embedded in what the state is telling us to measure, you know? Yeah.
So, just piggybacking on this, I remember talking about this last year or even earlier, and the state we're still waiting for the state to come back with that one parameter that we're going to be measuring.
So I'm looking at some of the notes also from the Mass Association of School Superintendents when they met with the commissioner, the acting commissioner. They're awaiting approval, but they're among some of the states who submitted an application in round one, have not yet been approved. They've asked the Secretary of Education, and they've also contacted a couple of other people to explain the delay. They're still trying to form a linkage to the proficiency rating, and DESE is still currently working on some other options for their consideration. So as Bill mentioned, it's pretty much in a limbo state right now. Yeah.
Do we have a sense of when it will be open for our input this year, or we don't have any sense of that?
I haven't seen anything yet, but I anticipate that it is coming.
Well, I'm just wondering if when that happens, I'd love to have that as an agenda item, so we can talk about that and provide some feedback.
Yeah, I'd follow up on the equity audit. you had mentioned that if we use, excuse me, the Mid-Atlantic, they'll do some of the work for free. But we still could get into the position where we're going anywhere between, well, I think you said like 37 and 57,000. Did we budget for that this year?
No, I don't think we're going to get into that this year. The Mid-Atlantic Equity Center really seemed to think they would be able to do the majority of the work within the scope of their contract with the federal government.
Okay, so that would keep us out from a
And we're expecting
cost.
some information from them, absolutely.
And
Yeah,
then-
as low as we can. I mean, not sacrificing quality, certainly.
Okay.
But if it's something that as we get into it, we think, gosh, we'd really like to pull in a couple of these folks who are really the research experts in the field about it, then I think the conversation, hopefully, by budget season, we'll have some good ideas of what that might look like.
Okay, so then we'll have the proper amount of time to look at it from a next year's
Right,
perspective.
and there's also some
spend.
grant money that we could certainly utilize for that as well.
And do we have that do we know what that criteria is of what we're going to audit? Or are we kind of figuring it out as we go along?
That's some of the pieces that are parts of the proposal in terms of the scope of work, and so those are starting to come in now. So we're sort of gathering an idea of what that might look like, and we honestly haven't even had a conversation at the leadership team level to sort of hash out what that might be.
Yeah, because I mean, if we spend, upwards of 50-something thousand and going into 2 years worth of time, we're going to find something. I mean, if we want to find something, we'll find it, right? And I just don't want to, I don't want to get ourselves in a position where, hey, we're spending this money, so we need to find something wrong to justify all the time and energy and effort and cash that we put into it. Okay.
So we go through the equity audit and they come up with some kind of report in May, June. I'm just trying to get a sense for what that report would come up with, recommendations that we might vote on for a future year's budget, or could these be programs or policies, or what? I'm just trying to picture what the outcome is going to look like.
Yes, maybe. Quite honestly, probably my guess would be that it would have some things that we would then go back to our long-range strategic plan, and we'd take a look and think about, okay, this is culture and climate, this is how do the pieces all sort of fit into what we've outlined for the work over the next few years, right? And sort of look at that, and then what additional learning is necessary for our educators and for our leaders and our community.
So first, I want to say thanks to that consultant who recommended the Mid-Atlantic Center, right? A consultant recommending free services. Keep him in mind if we do need to spend money. But overall, I want to say I really appreciate the way the goals are presented. I think it's very comprehensive, builds on all the work we've been doing. I love the clarification between ongoing and planning and action that needs to be taken. And it still feels like a lot. We do a lot in this district, and I hope that it's workable for the staff, but it feels really good. So thank you for all the hard work on this.
So I think I'm very, the first thing I would like to echo Mary said, and that's the first impression. And finally we see this paper putting the really important item, and especially have the timeline, which is really great. So I'm really concerned about, a couple of things, and one is MTSS, and I would like to echo Dennis said something about, we have so many different levels of the learner. How do we use this strategy cover everybody, so which will make us to have equity. I would like to see really some kind of rich plan to taking care of that. And if we have needed to conduct an audit, and what was our project for this MTSS we're talking about, and I know there is a big piece of the, but what will be this MTSS system combined with AB situation? And I would like to see a little bit detail about it, and because I think Don and Deb, we talk about that because I've got to know this MTSS just because we're talking about some math test. And last year, and this year, right? March or April. And we can discuss a little bit after the meeting. I really would like to see, do we have really detailed plan taking care of MTSS for our AB learning system? I really did not see that. You know, maybe I concern different things, but I really did not see that yet. At the same time, if we do conduct some kind of audit, I don't know if it's the right time to do that yet. That's just my, one sense I send out there, okay? So another thing, my concern is about our goal 1. Continue planning here, efforts related to possible changes in junior high and high school BIOS schedules for the goal number 1. And I think I read through Challenge Math. I agree with a lot of points inside. And high school students, they have long, a little bit, how do I say that? Concentration, a little bit long time concentration span. And if we can change their learning time from 45 minutes to 50 minutes, 55, 1 hour, even more than 1 hour, I have no problem with it. But however, for some junior high students, some of them just jump from their elementary school. Some of them just look like elementary school students, yet still that. And I think we probably still need, that's just my opinion, I think we probably still need a little bit close monitor for junior high, that 2-year student, other than give them the big, long time, spend time, let them to learn. I mean, it's obviously some of them are ready, but I just my opinion, I think a lot of them are not ready for really over 45 or 50 or 1 hour's learning. I think they probably need a little bit close monitor for the short time learning time. That's just my opinion. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Eileen. Yeah.
So I just wanted to say that I appreciated when I looked on in the packet at the homework implementation. That's all it really said in the packet, and I was wondering what that was. So I appreciated hearing today that there's going to be a lot of follow through on that policy, and it's I don't remember having a policy. Maybe we've done it. I just don't remember having a policy and we follow it through and kind of monitor its implementation. I really like that, especially now with this policy, because it was very. We had comments that were 180 degrees different from each other. So I think it would be appropriate to kind of follow it through. So I just wanted to say thank you for, I don't know whose idea that was, but thank you to whoever thought of it.
I will pass that along.
Okay, so I don't see any more questions right now. We will be taking a vote on this at the next meeting, so.
Just add something, Amy, if you don't mind. So thank you for the comments and questions tonight. We've made note, I certainly have made note of those. If between now and perhaps the end of next week, if you think of other questions or comments, perhaps you go through this again, please feel free, or actually I would encourage you to send those directly to me. I'll share those with our administrative staff so that when we come back on October 3rd, we'll be able to address those. If I do get questions, those will be shared with all school committee members, and we'll have an opportunity to provide some comprehensive answers to those. And then we'll be ready on October 3rd to have a more in-depth discussion if that's what we need to do. Thank you.
That's great. So I'm going to move on to the school building update, and I'm going to give it to Mary.
Okay. So we had a school building committee meeting on September 13th. At that meeting, we shared the nice summary that Marie had put together, the memo and the presentation to the school committee, because it's good material for them to have. We talked in depth about the recommendation. So the building committee had recommended to the school committee that the funds come out of reserves, but we had not yet recommended a funding amount. So we discussed that, and we voted that it should be requesting $1.3 million, and then the MSB reimbursement is at 45.3%, and so the balance would then be 710 through E&D. So as a school committee, we're going to see the warrant article come forward. Dave's been working on that, and at that time we can vote the amount when we vote the article and our recommendation. Let's see. We also talked in depth about an outreach plan. You have a lovely flyer in front of you that builds on flyers that Katie and Christina did last year. The nice logo that Christina's daughter Anna Richlick created for the school building project, and then JD updated it with lots of good information. And so you see our dates and places for outreach. The Douglas sites will be preceded by a tour, a short tour of the Douglas School, highlighting some of the reasons that we need this building project. And then there'll be an outreach presentation and question and answers for the community. So you see lots of dates there: Acton, Boxborough, schools, community, day, evening, weekend, weekdays, in an effort to really get the word out. And so please share this. We can share this with you electronically, share it with people. And the only thing we have to be careful of is that with any school resources, we're not advocating. And so we just want people to come vote. We're not saying approve, we're saying vote, come vote. Okay? As school committee members, we can advocate, but we can't use school resources like printing and email and things like that to advocate. I know, rules. And then, Marie, want to give an update on MSBA's?
Thank you, Mary. So a couple of things. We have gone ahead and scheduled now 8 outreach sessions for the public. And so we are putting this on the website, and the first one is Tuesday, October 17th at 7 p.m. at Douglas. We have them at various places, including the libraries in both towns, the senior centers in both towns. There are 2 Saturday mornings at Douglas with tours followed by information sessions so that folks can get in and see the building that we're talking about. There's one at Gates in the evening. We're looking to put one at Conant as well, so we may add one to this. The building committee also talked about doing neighborhood coffees, so if any members of Acton or Boxborough would like to host a coffee, please email Karen Call in central office, and she'll be happy to connect you with somebody who will come and do that for you. So lots of outreach, informal conversations about the process and the building project in preparation for town meeting on December 4th. MSBA is moving along well. The enrollment and the educational profile were both submitted, as you know, on July 3rd, and we knew that they would be in touch with us to have a meeting to go over the enrollment information and to agree on the final enrollment number for the new school by October 3rd, which is coming right up here. And they were kind of delayed, and they reached out and said, don't worry, we're looking at it, we'll be in touch. And all the while, we knew that our enrollment for this fall was much higher than we anticipated. And so our new finance director here, Dave, got in touch with our person at MSBA last week, went over the motion language for the town meeting, so we're getting in shape for that, and talked a little bit about our enrollment issues, and we heard from them today, and they said, go ahead and wait until you get your official October 1 numbers, resubmit the numbers, and we'll allow you to use the new numbers, not last year's numbers. So that's great news. And as you know, our kindergarten is 52 kids higher than projection and 70 higher than their projection based on what I submitted to them in July. 70 kids is 30%. So I think we'll have a very interesting conversation with them. So I'm thrilled to hear that they'll delay their process a little bit to account for this year's numbers. So that's where we are with MSBA. There's one other thing due October 3rd, which is the maintenance document, which JD has submitted most, if not all of, for us.
I'm going to make one other push. I think it's critically important that all the school committee members go to one of these outreach sessions. I think it's very, very important that all of us are informed about this. So look, you have lots of opportunities. Look at something, put it on your calendar, and please join us. I think we now want to discuss adding another Acton School Committee member to the building committee. We tossed it around a little bit last time, but didn't come to a final decision with Christina's resignation. Right now it's Amy and me on the committee, but it would be great to have one more person. And so we open that up for discussion.
Dennis is waving his hands over there saying me, so.
Well, I don't know if I was yelling me, but since I'm new to the board, I guess I'll volunteer to jump on that, if you'll have me.
Any other discussions? Anyone else volunteer? Want to? Sure, go for it.
I'm wondering, so there was an incredibly aggressive outreach that was done, and I don't remember how many people. It was like less than 100, I think, people attended. It was disappointing. So I'm wondering if
You mean for the DMPRC?
the forums that were held.
Yeah, so actually
way back.
we had great attendance. We had 266 people
did?
who gave us surveys, and we
Okay.
had lots of attendance at our forums.
Okay. So I'm wondering if how these forums are going to be different, and if there's also talk about canvassing at the transfer station, or doing mailings or other types of outreach other than just forums.
So at this, we're going to produce a video, and that'll go on our website. We didn't talk about, but we did for the last round do a video of the outreach of the presentation that went on the website. We should do that again because that had a lot of views as well. We have not talked about canvassing or mailings, so this is where we have to be careful because we can't use school resources for mailings. Typically, I'm learning, in this kind of process, it's a community group that comes together and does that. No community group is stepping forward at this time, and we think it's probably okay for this first vote, but absolutely we're going to need community members who are advocating for this for the subsequent vote on the school building project. I don't know, Bill, if you want to add anything?
No, I think, Mary, you're absolutely right. I understand the concern, but at this stage of the building process, my experience has been that there typically isn't that level of outreach. You want to kind of reserve that for when you get to the big project, the big funding that you need to go forward with the construction, which likely will be an override question. And that's generally when a citizens group, a yes group, a support group will come forward, and then they have, they'll with assistance, certainly from staff, can provide advice on how to move forward with that. But that's been done in these communities before, and my sense is that that will happen. And at this stage, I think, in my opinion, I think the outreach that has been planned, I think, will be effective, and this potential project and the feasibility funding, has been talked about, and there's been a lot of focus in the communities, really starting with your master planning. So my sense is that the committee's on a good track.
And I would just add, we have an extensive email list that all of this information will go out through. Every organization in town, from the youngest to the oldest members. And then we're also talking about using social media to post information, not as a dialogue, but to post information.
So I just want to tell you that I have many obligations that I do on the school committee, and the master planning stuff I can't commit to on the committee, but I'm sitting here like so excited about this, and I think that my colleagues around the table share that excitement. Could you give a little bit more information about the forums? Because I like the first forum, there were like so many options, and it was this new thing that was really overwhelming. And I think that these are so important, and I want to be able to go out to the PTOs and other stakeholders and really kind of tell them why it's important to go to this. And if you could give a bit of an overview, it would be great.
We have not put it together at all. That is work that will be done before October 17th. I would imagine we can bring it, hopefully, maybe to the October 3rd meeting. I don't know if we'll have it done that quickly, but we can try. But it will be information like what are we asking for at town meeting, and what does that mean, and being clear about that. We'll be clear about our preferred option and what that is, what we're asking for at town meeting, and I think we'll do a little bit into the future of if this stage passes and we move into a school building project, what are some of the implications? So residents always want to know about the tax implication. There won't be any immediate tax implication from this December vote because we'll be using E&D, but there will be at the building stage. And so I'm imagining we'll show the debt chart for each town and what it currently is, and then lay over different color bars of what would happen with the school building project, so people can see how that fits. We maybe could, in a range, because this is still early, estimate some kind of potential tax impact so people would know that. I had some other notes here, but and frankly, if there's information you would think you would want to know as a taxpayer, come talk to me, or as a voter. Also in that, I imagine we talk about the three buckets: our short-term bucket, our medium-term bucket, and our long-term bucket, because they're all related, and that has cost and tax impacts as well.
Can I just add? And we'll talk about the need, and the needs of Douglas, and the needs of Gates and Conant, and why we're here.
Thank you so much. That's extremely helpful.
So, Mary, I'm just wondering if there's any value in showing kind of where we started with the number of options and how we ended up with this one.
So Marie is strategic. That presentation she shared with us as an overview of what's happened I think, was partly to start building a slide deck, and so I think our intent is to use some of those and give some of that history. But but, you know, we also have to keep people's attention and leave time for question and answer. So it's going to be a tight presentation, but trying to hit all those points.
So we do need to take a vote to add Dennis to the building committee. All those in favor, quick before he changes his mind. Opposed? Abstentions? Are you going to abstain? Thank you very much. Thank you so much, Dennis, really.
That's fine. I have a question on the events starting on the 17th. We probably have to coordinate that if you want people to show, because we don't want to end up with a quorum of us. So we should probably just come up with something to make sure we know which school committee members are going to which.
I think it would be great if people could kind of pick a date that they're going to go to and then let Mary know, and then make sure she can keep track of that, so that we don't end up with a quorum. Or if we do have a quorum, then we post it as such. I mean, we can do that too. Do you have anything else, Mary? No. Okay.
The next item is the coordinator program review. The final report has been received. Don's going to speak very briefly to this. I went through both the preliminary report and the final report, and I must say that that for a district the size of Acton-Boxborough with 5,700 students, to be cited on just a few of the items is reflective of, I think, the good work that happens here. So there's some things that we need to work on, which we will. We'll be developing a corrective action plan that will go back to the state. But in general, I congratulate the district on this very, very, very fine report.
Thanks, Bill. And as you noted, in a district this size, this certainly doesn't happen with a few leaders across our district. And at the top, it certainly is the hard work of folks that are in the classrooms writing all these reports and doing the paperwork every single day, as well as folks on the outside, like our parent advisory committee, who helps to keep us on the straight and narrow and hold us accountable, even more so than we already are. So we appreciate that. We were really very pleased with this report. Overall, there certainly are a number of compliance pieces we have to address, some of them being as simple as changing and updating some wording on a form. I didn't put this, well, I did actually put it in here, but you know, one of them was because the form for when we suspend students with IEPs for longer than 10 days, it hadn't been updated to reflect the latest the requirements. I take that actually as a source of pride, because we don't do that. So I thought, oh darn, that's a good one to lose on, right? So anyway, so the biggest one certainly by far we have is our English Language Education Program Review, and our new department chair. I'm excited for you all to meet her, Mary Ann Young. She's amazing and is already stepping up and taking charge and really leading everything in the department with all of her experiences. So she and I are very excited to tackle that project, and you'll certainly be hearing more about what that looks like in the months to come. So I'll welcome any questions that you might have about this.
All right, well, thank you, Dawn. Thank you for everyone. That I know how much work it goes into to get the information for this, so thanks very much for that. Oh, you have Paul has a question. I'm sorry.
No, it's not a question, it's a comment. I went through it quickly, and the only one really that was a true follow was the ELE 17, and I just wanted to say, I think that's pretty indicative of job well done, so good job.
And to add, we know we need to be funding that better. We know that.
Okay, so moving on to agenda item number 9, possible school committee workshop. So I'm bringing this before you tonight because I just wanted to get a sense of the committee to see if you wanted to do a follow-up to our summer workshop. I know we weren't able to finish the summer workshop. Things it was great, but it was so packed that we ended up not being able to finish what we started. So I'm kind of throwing out there the option of doing another a type of workshop with just the committee, and inviting Rob Evans this time to come in and facilitate. And so I just kind of want to get a sense of where you are. If you're interested in that, or you're just like, no, come on, let's just keep moving. So I'm throwing that out there.
So since I didn't participate in summer workshop, were the items that were not done or completed or finished, did they support what the goals are for the rest of this year? Or, you know, what was the agenda for the rest of the workshop that wasn't completed?
So I don't remember exactly. So what we ended up spending a bulk of time on was talking about what the things we wanted to start doing as a school committee that we weren't doing, some of the things that we wanted to stop doing that we were doing that we felt like were not helpful as a committee, and then just what are the things that we think are going really well and that we would like to continue. So we got to a place where that was all written up, but we never really had a chance to kind of wrap around back to it again. Do you want to say something, Tessa? Oh, no, that's okay.
So I had the joyful experience of attending charting the course on Saturday, and had my official school committee training. And one of the things that I noticed was that we are actually doing a lot of things right, but maybe not in the eyes of some members of the community in terms of the way school committees work and what's under their purview, and how this is really a business meeting held in public rather than a public meeting. And so I think what would be really helpful for us if we choose to do an additional training or workshop or whatever would be kind of to focus on anything that we are doing really well, as seen by the eyes of the Mass Association of School Committees, or if that's who's leading it, and just really to hammer out like the ABCs of school committee and the expectations around. We've had a lot of upheaval. We have some new members, me included. Just in terms of working together and what our goals are, I feel like our summer workshop, there was a lot of personal warm and fuzzies and not so warm and fuzzies, and that we spent a lot of time learning how to work together as a team. But maybe if we had a workshop that was focused on our goals as that team, because I think we came out of that with a better understanding of how we were supposed to work together, but maybe having a workshop focused on what we really are supposed to be working on.
Yeah, I'm all for it too, and maybe a little bit of focus around decision-making and how to move decisions forward as a committee might be an effective use of time. And I think Rob would be a really good facilitator.
I totally support that. As you were talking, I realized we all do that training, but we all do it outside of the district with people we never work with. And so I think it'd be valuable to have some of that discussion and to clarify some, and we may hear something and interpret it differently, and so then maybe a little discussion, and so that we know, okay, we come to a common understanding of what we are supposed to be working on, how do we work on, and decision making too, I think is great. So I'm totally in support of that.
To follow up on what Mary said, I went with my sister, actually, because she's on the school committee in Westford, and it was really interesting to sit with someone whose school committee in town has very different issues going on right now than what we have going on. I mean, they're a comparable district and everything else, but it was interesting to go through the different structures, open meeting law and budget finance, and it was interesting to listen to the members from other towns. You could tell when the part of the training hit on what their school committee is dealing with right now. There was a man from a very small district that's considering regionalization, and so there was a lot of discussion about public outreach, and that's when they were talking about this as a public business meeting and not a public meeting, and it was just really interesting dealing with different size committees. His committee only had 3 people on it, and dealing with some vocational, committees and things like that. It was really interesting, but I think you're right. There's a lot of value in going through those things, especially because we've all taken it at different times. You only have to do it at the beginning of your tenure, so.
I have to say, last time the workshop is the most really pleasant meeting I have been in school committee. I really love it very much, and I hope it can go forever. At the end, and everybody was writing the board outside there, and I can see everybody is so happy to say, the truth from really from their heart, write down everything there. And but however, we really didn't touch something like, how we gonna collaborate with each other and work as a team, and how do we mending our inside relationship. We never touched that part, as we never talked. That is one part missing. We are going to that way while we're writing the board. However, we really did not talk about it. I don't know. I hate to add another meeting, but I think the workshop is necessary. And my question is why we need to invite Bob, and he could be already in the, community series talking. He already, give us speech there. We may watch TV or whatever. May we, invite somebody else? Dorothy, who is the lady last time, was like really a treasure. I don't know, but that's just, my sense. Thank you.
So I can't remember when that was when we had Dorothy Pressery. That was July. Yeah. So it seems a little bit like we've done this. Did we ever get any feedback from her? Was there supposed to be any feedback? I mean, I remember.
So yes, and that's not in our packet tonight, is it? Okay. So I just saw that today, so I'll make sure that gets out to the committee. Just a kind of whatever follow-up she sent to Beth. Beth's not here, so when I get in touch with Beth again, I'll ask her about that.
Okay, but if I may, it just seems like we just have come off a workshop like that. It almost seems a little more than we need, but because I'm looking at the moving forward with the start time and the building stuff. We got a full agenda. It's almost like we're kind of taking ourselves off the track so that we can get on the track. I don't know.
I just feel like we had such a difficult end of last year that we need a little more of building. And I think what you're saying of the collaboration and working as a team can fold into all this that we're talking about. So I think we could use it. And can I make a plug? Boxborough's holding 2 open meeting law and conflict of interest trainings. One is this Saturday. I know Maya and I are going. And then there's one on September 28th at 7 p.m. And so I encourage those who haven't had that training recently to please take it.
I would really like to work with Rob Evans as a committee. I think it could be very helpful. And I actually hope that we do more than just one session. I think it would be great to work with someone who sort of really does help us congeal and work better as a team. And I think the thing with Dorothy was lovely, but it didn't feel like it was really getting at the meat of things. And so I think this would be great.
I do want to say that I've had multiple conversations with Rob at the end of last year and then recently, and I feel like he's just a real wealth of knowledge, and really it could do a fantastic job. So a little plug for him. I'm sorry, Diane?
I support having an additional workshop. I always feel cheated because it's a business meeting. So we in July, we had an executive session, we had warrants, we had a protracted conversation about the search. And by the time we got to Dorothy, we were tired, and she helps us through her workshop, she guides us for like an hour and a half or 2 hours, and every time she's here, I don't want her to leave. I'm just getting started, and she's wrapping up in it, and we're tired. And I would love an opportunity to just have that be the centerpiece of what we do. So I'm for it.
I think that would have to be, I agree with you. I think we would have to just go into it with, there's just no business going to be there's not any business at all. We're just going to get together, and this is just strictly a workshop. Tessa?
I just think that if only for the decision-making help, around that, I think that, sometimes we have conversations that go around and around and around, and that's not always a bad thing because we want everybody to share their opinion and everything. But one of the things that I took away from the Saturday training was there's a lot of things that we don't necessarily have to have personal opinions about because it's not really our purview. We're sort of helping the educators do what they're supposed to do, and it's their best practices and things like that around certain things, and they talked a lot about that. What does school committee need to be doing? And I just think clarification on that for all of us, together in a group would really help with some of the decision-making stuff that I think we've struggled with.
Okay, well, I'm going to move us forward and make the decision that I'll be in touch with Rob and let you know a date. Hopefully, we were thinking maybe a morning instead of an evening meeting, just because of the tiredness. So we'll be in touch about what your schedules are and who can. We'll make it happen. Oh, okay. So we're down to subcommittee reports. Does anyone? I didn't list them out here in detail, but does anyone have some subcommittee information to report out?
BLF met, but we just kind of updated them on things. There's nothing really. Oh.
You can go either way.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay, so I'll report on BLF then, if you want to hear about that. So we had a great meeting last week. While I find my notes, I'll give a plug for the library in Boxborough. If there are families listening, the library is going to be closed starting on the 25th of this month for 2 weeks for carpeting replacement. So if you can get to the library before then, you can take out as many books as you want, and October is a fine-free month. And so
books, movies, audios, take it out. If you take it out, they don't have to move it. Otherwise, they're going to move and move and move. And Acton colleague can come over, get a library card in Boxborough.
Yep. And we're on a different network, so different things are available. We talked about town meeting in December, and one of the things that the school committee members asked at BLF was if the town would consider making the school warrant article first on the warrant articles. So I'm wondering if our Acton colleagues could do the same with Acton. Felt it might be important since those were the impetus for the meeting. Let's see. Also of interest to the school might be that the Hager well, which is the well that feeds the Blanchard School, the town is going to go out to bid on a new well operator or a potential new well operator. Whitewater's been the well operator for the town for a number of years, and it's time that goes out to bid just to see if there's anything else out there we should be looking at. So school will want to know about that. And then there were a couple of concerns around buses, et cetera, but I'll send a separate note to the administration around that. But those were the big items at BLF.
Okay. ALG is going to meet on September the 28th, next Thursday morning. Other than that, I don't have anything else to add to the member reports. Does anyone? Okay, great. Well, then we've done the high school trip, so I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Amy. There's some information in your packet. I just want to briefly speak to one of the FYI pieces, and that is the 2017-18 school improvement plans. So a copy of each school's improvement plan was provided in your packet for your information. I wanted to also add that I know at times in the past, schools have come and presented their plans. What we plan to do this year is that throughout the year, we will be inviting each school to a committee meeting to make a presentation. We're leaving what the content of that presentation is up to the principals, something that they feel that they want to share with the committee. If they want to come and share the school improvement plan, and that's the decision they make, they can do that. I don't think that's going to happen. They really want to, they'll be coming and highlighting positive aspects that are of things that are going on in the school. So we'll keep you updated on that schedule. I know we have planned, Maria, I think we planned an elementary presentation sometime in October, the end of October, right? And then the high school and junior high school will are up for November. So that's what I want to add.
And then I just wanted to add our next meeting on October the 3rd. One of the topics that we need to be thinking about is the permanent search. I didn't want to have the conversation tonight because I felt like we needed to see the school district's goals so that we can think about how then the permanent search fits in with that. So if you can be thinking about how to structure or what kinds of things you're looking for, then we can come together next meeting and have a discussion, a more lengthy discussion about how to do the search. And that's all I have. Oh, Paul?
Just a question on the, because I'm reading 13.2, the revised schedule. I have on my calendar that we moved the November 2nd meeting to November 9th. But we weren't sure whether it's going to be 7 or 7:30. Do we know that?
I don't have any information on that yet. I'll try to get that to you. Okay, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? I got a lot of ayes there. I know, look at this. It's 10 minutes before 9.